Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Coaching Consulting Connection program. I had a brain fart there. It is a program because we are on YouTube and a podcast as well. I'm going to be uploading this on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, be sure to check us out there. Today, I have a, development coach and consultant and entrepreneur, John Wayne Mullins. I've known him for quite a while. He's going to be a great guest today. He's going to be bringing a lot of value to us. And so, John, man, I appreciate you being here with us today. And just tell us about yourself. What's your background and what's going on?
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. I certainly appreciate it. And just like Josh said, we've known each other for a few years now. We first got connected know each other from the JMT, the John Maxwell team.
Right.
And a little bit about me. It's my 20th year in the Coast Guard Reserves. I've been on and off active duty for the last 20 years, and I can't believe it. But that's a lot of it. That the Coast Guard is really has a lot to do with my story, and a lot to do with where I'm at as a coach, as an executive, and also as a business owner. But I joined the Coast Guard right out of high school, and I wanted to get out of Ohio. My first duty station was right back in Ohio. And, they put me.
That's usually how it is.
Yeah, right. And, from there, I moved around the country. I went from Ohio to Oklahoma, which is another landlocked state. And then from there, went and did a couple of deployments, went on active duty, went over into the sandbox in Iraq and Kuwait, and, played in the sand with, everyone over there, and then came back and really kind of established my life here in Virginia, between here in Virginia Beach and DC, and went to school, ended up getting my education, my graduate degree in leadership coaching and mentoring, and went to work for the government just like anyone else. And then eventually, through a series of changes and desires and wants, I was able to work with very high level senior leaders within the government, and then I was doing some work with the Coast Guard, and I just wasn't really fulfilled, and met my wife and made the jump from full-time government work to full-time business owner. And that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half, is really launching my own leadership coaching and developing company here in Virginia Beach. And it's been a wild ride, but it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm sure. Be sure. Are you documenting it? You better be.
Gosh, yes. Yeah.
You better be, because at some point it's going to matter.
At some point this is going to turn into a book, because there are a lot of lessons that I have just been itching to talk about, speak on, write about, because there are some nuggets that I just wish that somebody would have grabbed me by the collar when I was 24 years old and be like, what are you doing?
And that's so true. In my own life, I've seen that. And, and it kind of goes back to that whole, whenever we go through the experience, and the reason why we should document it to those that are listening in, is because, you can take those experiences and turn around and help someone else with it. Right. And something I like to tell people, and I think I've heard you said it before too, is, be the person that you needed whenever you went through it. Right.
Yeah. And, that's something that from my earliest time in the military, I always found it like, when you find somebody that you just like, you want to be around, or who just loves their job or loves life, you don't really see that. Or when you really, go out of your way to help somebody out because it's the right thing to do. I loved doing that, especially in my job. So I was a yeoman in the Coast Guard, and yeomans are admin personnel type. But I got to help people, help families, because it was really a part of me. It was a part of my work ethic. I really just loved taking care of people.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so it was in that space where I really kind of got to find that fulfillment. But then also, because I did get to work with so many people, they were just like, oh, thanks for it. It really means a lot. And hearing all these stories, it's like, where are all the leaders at? I was like 25 years old, and I was asking myself this question: is where are all the leaders that I want to emulate, that I want to find and be a mentor or a mentee, and where are they?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think by asking myself that question at such a young age, it really propelled me into the business that I am in now of really developing better leaders. Because if I'm asking myself that at 25 and
Right.
I'm still seeing it, I'm 38 now, it's like, there's a huge
There's a
need for
need.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's kind of similar to my own journey is, yeah, no, I mean, you see the lack of not just leadership, but integrity, and then obviously I would say leadership and integrity are the same, right? Because you got to
Oh,
lead
yeah,
yourself,
right.
and so, yeah, no, I understand your journey quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, a lot of people, that are coming to this program, they may not understand or know how you do things. So, or they might want to be, that might be curious about what you do. So what is your focus in? Are there any particular groups or communities that you cater to? I know you said you work for the government, but
Yeah, I've
you
actually
know,
completely stepped away from the government.
okay,
I've done some consulting work here and there, but truly where I feel called to really serve are a couple of different people. One, veterans,
yeah,
specifically veterans in transition,
hmm,
because being on active duty so many times and transitioning off, I've gone through that cycle so many times.
right,
That's more of my nonprofit. I really don't charge anything to do that. But then my other community of people that I'm really passionate about serving are entrepreneurs and
hmm,
business owners.
hmm,
Specifically, um, because I am a man, I love working with men because I feel
right,
like there is such a huge need there. Um,
hmm,
but the irony is, a lot of my courses that I've been teaching and doing lately, women have been signing up.
hmm,
So it's iron, the irony.
yeah. No, I see that. Yeah,
But at the same time, that's where, even though women are signing up for these courses, I appreciate that. But
right,
I'm asking, why aren't men? You
right,
know, so I always try and those stay plugged into those three communities: business owners, men
hmm.
within my community, and then veterans.
Now, you bring up a really good topic and one that's near and dear to me because, I served in the Marine Corps myself. And, that transition time after you get out of the military is a very, very difficult time, especially if you don't know what's going on. Right. So
Right.
what do if you don't mind going into that, what advice or what do you talk about? Like when you talk about transition, like how does that,
Oh man, there
I
is.
mean, in a
Um,
condensed, right? I mean, we could talk for hours, I know on that, but
yeah. Well, one of the things that I've been seeing is, the mindset piece
right.
is really being aware of who you are, not
Hmm.
just, like who is Josh outside of uniform.
Right.
And as people in the military, we're almost like we've never been given permission to think that way,
Right.
because our identity is tied so close to our rank or our position or our uniform. And so when it's time for us to hang that uniform up, I have been finding a lot of people, men and women, they have that struggle of being almost selfish a little
Right.
bit, and a healthy dose of just taking some time to really be introspective and finding out, who am I? What
Right.
defines me? What are my strengths? What's my why?
Hmm.
Simon Sinek talks, has a whole book about this, starting with why. And I use strength finders and really helping you identify, what are your just things that you are just naturally good at.
Hmm.
And that's a starting place. And so, but I say all that because that's the greatest place that I like to take people through
Hmm.
is read this book, take this assessment, and just
Hmm.
tell me what you think. And
Right.
I think that is such a great starting place. And it's inexpensive. It's not, I
Hmm.
think the Start With Why course is $25 for veterans, and the uh, Strength Finders is, I think, $25 too. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
pretty inexpensive investment. But
You brought up a identity, right? We all identify by what we do, and that's something I learned a few years back. That you're right. I mean, you do a certain job, especially in the military for so long. That's who you become. That's the persona, because you
Right.
tell people, hey, this is what I do. And it's like, okay, everything's answered. It's easy. And then when you have to get out and figure it out on your own, I mean, that's tough. I mean, man, some people,
Right.
and I think that's why we see a lot of issues in society today, especially with transitioning members
Oh, right.
is that they have a hard time differentiating because they don't know, like you
Right.
don't know
They
what you
don't
don't know if you don't know. Right.
Yeah, and another thing that I really encourage everyone to do is don't wait till you're 18 months out to start thinking about this stuff.
Right.
Do it at 10 years, do it at
Right.
12 years, do it at 15. I mean, I heard a colonel once tell me, he's like, you know what, as much emphasis that we put on the academy and boot camp, we should start thinking about transition day one, and
Right.
just from having different topics and awareness of thinking, who are you? And I think overall that could completely help you to be a better leader, a better soldier, or sailor, Marine Corps,
Right.
Whatever. So yeah, that's one of my pet peeves is, the military does a pretty bad job of encouraging transition, of finding, who you are.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the government has its purpose, right?
It does.
It's a function.
It's a function.
But before we move on, and I want to bring this up since you talked about it, and because I found something just recently that really made a lot of sense to me, and I'd like to share it with you and get your thoughts on it. Tony Robbins, obviously, he's if you don't know who Tony Robbins is, you're living under a rock.
Right.
But he has this thing called the 6 core human needs. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Dude, I will send you a link, and then I'll put it in the show notes because I don't want to leave people hanging. But yeah, so I came across this a couple, like I said, not very long ago, maybe a couple months ago, and it talks about the 6 core human needs. And when I saw this, and I'll tell them to you in a second, but when I saw it, I saw how the military fit this model from day one. And had I known about this when I got out, it would have helped me transition faster. And I'm sharing it with you because I think it's important. But basically, it's this real quick, and then we'll move on. I apologize, but one is certainty, right? You need an environment that gives you certainty, but you also need an environment that gives you variety, right? The military does that. It gives you certainty. You get paid. This is your schedule, but it also gives you variety because it gives you a chance to learn new things. The next stage is significance. And, the fourth one is love and connection. Being in the military gives you that. It gives you significance right off the bat.
Right.
And then the love and connection is you're taking care of your unit. You're taking care of your family members or your unit members.
Right.
And then the last two are the spiritual needs, and that's growth and contribution. And the military does that too. You have ranks, you have schools to go to grow, and then you have contribution because you take that back to your unit and you feel like you're more than just a cog in the wheel.
Right.
And if one of those are out of whack, man, it bleeds onto everything else. And anyway, that was something I found, like I said, a couple months ago, and I'm like, man, that, and if you don't know it, you don't know it.
Yeah, no,
I think a lot of people.
And imagine if you're, a CEO of a unit or, the command sergeant major or whatnot, and you are aware of these things.
Right.
You start leading and operating from that awareness. I can only imagine of having, my supervisor be aware of these things, and then sharing it with his troops or her troops.
Right.
I can't imagine if somebody would have shared these resources with me 10 years ago. Like, oh my gosh,
And it's funny because like all this for me, and I'm sure maybe it's the same for you, this is all by accident. Like I came across personal development by complete accident. And then once I started going down that path, I mean, I'm sure the same thing for you. It was just, it's just like, oh, this makes total sense.
Right. Right.
So, okay. So you told us about what you do, and who you cater. How do you do what you do? I mean, are there any techniques or routines you follow or?
Yes. So a long time ago, I'm a person of faith, and I've always been very connected to my church or connected to my community. And I always knew that, when you serve, when you show up, people notice.
Right.
And so when I moved down here to Virginia Beach from DC, you know, I didn't really know anybody, and I was like, okay, what's an easy way to get connected? So I started finding opportunities through my church, and then I found opportunities through my community, and I found nonprofit boards that I could serve on, or community projects that I could serve on,
Mm-hmm.
and those connected me to the people that I wanted to work with. Those connected me to business owners, to people that were like, you know, future clients or future people that I could be working with. And so I found those, you know, sometimes you have to volunteer, you know, to make those connections, or
Mm-hmm.
even, you know, I know a lot of entrepreneurs are going to appreciate this, but networking, you know,
Right.
I'm a big fan of it. Not all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
it serves its purpose. You know,
Right.
if you're not going to find your clients, you're not going to meet people here in your home office. You have to get out
Too bad,
and
right? Sadly.
yeah, too bad. Or you're not going to meet people on Facebook or LinkedIn, or, you know, you use it as a tool. But, you know, speaking of LinkedIn, I stay very active on there. Another tool that I use is I share stories. I write a
Mm.
lot. So what I do, people always ask me where you come up with your content. You know, here's a book that I'm reading right now. It's called The Tender Warrior.
Okay.
And, you know, if I read something on here that really like captures my attention, I'll chew on it, and then I'll write about it,
Right.
and then I'll share it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll even use the same language, but then tie like what this is saying to me.
Right.
And it's a great way to, one, share the book, but
Right.
then it's also a great way to share your abilities. And
Right.
so I use LinkedIn as a great way to capture my stories, capture my talent, send it out, share my stories, and people connect to it. So that's one way that I use social media, is serving, and then also using social media to actually, you know, get out there and connect with people.
So was there one thing that, you know, so what started you down this path? Was there, I mean, I know you talked about your early days in the military and seeing the need for it. Was there like a defining moment that you remember that got you going down this path, or is it just kind of like a gradual thing?
Wow, that's a great question, Josh. I think, you know, looking back, you know, specifically in the military, I can see at different times in my life where I was just seeking a mentor or seeking help, seeking a coach, or, you know, seeing the need.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I was in leadership positions, I saw the same thing too, where I needed someone to kind of ask me some questions to kind of, you know, open up my aperture, because I'm so close to the problem or the issue that I was having.
Right.
And so I saw that in my own self. But what really kind of, you know, what really got me really deep down the path on personal growth and leadership development was really the John Maxwell team.
Mm-hmm.
I speak, you know, highly of this organization, but what it is, for the people that don't know, it's a certification program that helps you, get you exposed to content. It gets you exposed to, you know, he has a certified coaching and speaking and training program. But what it is, he teaches you using his resources, where you can go out and share that with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I used that, and then, you know, right around the time that I joined the JMT, I went to grad school, and then, you know, I went and did a mission trip with John, and then I did all these other things, and I think it was just a course, you know, from the military to working for the government to working with nonprofits. I think that there was you know, as I traveled down this road, I just saw this, like, I really enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it happened overnight, though.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
know, it's unique. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people that might be listening in don't know the whole coaching process, and it's unique because as a coach, it's so neat to help people raise awareness about where they are and where they want to go.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and you know, and it's and you know, and saying it that way doesn't really say it. You know, it's like,
No.
I mean, it's so powerful, and it's such a it's life changing. It really is, and to see the energy and the yeah, no, I totally get that. So,
Well, speaking of coaching and consulting, because I call myself both, and I'm a facilitator. People
right,
always say, ask me, what is it? What is coaching? And the term itself is very usually used within
right, yeah,
corporate America and society, because anyone can become a coach.
right,
There is no certifying organization, and you have ICF, but that's pretty much it. But as a coach, a football coach, or as a coach, a
right,
fitness
right.
coach,
There's so much, yeah,
there's so much. And so, but then what's a consultant? What's a facilitator? What are all these things? And so, I empathize with people, because, when I say that, I try and say, well, I target these individuals, or this, I'm a business coach, and I work with organizations who are trying to develop a better team. And so
right,
you really have to identify, define what is coaching. I think only the individual coach can do that.
right. No, that's true.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right there. Okay, so when someone's working with you, what should they expect?
Growth.
That's good.
Yeah, they can. One of the things I always promise them is that you will leave every one of our coaching sessions with a new perspective, because I'm going to ask you a question that you may not even expect, or may, because you were tied so closely to that problem, or that solution. And I'm going to ask a question that's going to really poke holes in your life and help you kind of see your life from that 30,000-foot view, or the way that I view it. So it's almost like, and I know you'll appreciate this, but a few years ago, I got into, I'm still, it's a hobby, is photography.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You can either have a macro lens, which is used for very close, or you can have a wide lens that's, the apertures open up wide. I like to be that wide angle lens.
Right.
Help them see things once they step back. It's like, if you make this decision, it's going to lead to this.
Right.
Because so many people have this tight macro look on their life.
Right.
That if they were able to take a step back and think about, their decisions, or this or that, it would help them kind of, be where they really want to go in life.
Right. I mean, they're so close to the tree, they can't see the forest, It's
right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely developing a growth mindset is something that I just don't say. It's something that I really live by.
No, yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So why do you want to help people?
Well, if you look around, look in our society, the divorce rate is ridiculous. There's, suicide rates is absurd. Mental health is on the rise. And it's all because there are no people that are, reaching out and helping people grow. And I believe that starts with, if you are a better leader, if you invest in yourself as a better leader, you are going to make the people around you better. And that starts with you. And it doesn't have to be this big investment or time, but if you learn how to connect better, you're gonna have a ripple effect, a snowball effect of saying, hey, now I'm going to teach Josh how to establish better relationships. And for every guy, say if I'm coaching a group of men, that's every marriage. Yeah. That's every relationship. That's every, fatherhood, everything that he is attached to. He's going to bring those things home into his life, into his community, all because you chose to invest in yourself and learn how to lead from, that central place of just leading with influence, of leading with that positional place that is just
congruency.
Oh, yeah. Congruency. Yeah.
No, I totally get that too. So, okay. So now you started your own business, and, you're really, and you're rocking it, man. I mean, I see your posts, I see all the stuff that you're doing, and you're doing some fantastic things. What tools and resources do you use that have helped you the most in this venture?
I am a big journaler.
Okay.
Actually, my wife just got me the Rocket Book, which is an awesome journal. You can write in it, and email it to your email, your Evernote. I'm always taking notes, and that's so helpful for me. It's a cool tool. I'll send you a link and I'll share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So journaling has been a big part of helping me grow myself, but also grow my business, because like I said, I'm always taking notes. And then honestly, the biggest tool that I would say helped me the most is networking. I mean, I'm an introvert by nature, but I know that if I go to this networking event, I'm going to meet at least 5 people who could possibly be new clients or possibly help me or connect me with someone else. And so networking has been a huge, huge part of my business, is just constantly getting involved with the community.
Okay. So you told us a little bit about that. What was that one book that you said you're reading?
The Tender Warrior.
Yeah. Now,
I just got it.
So what books along with that are you reading, and what are you learning out of them? Oh, dude, that's fantastic. Dude, I read that book every year. So he just showed a book for those of you that are listening on the podcast. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. If you haven't read that or even heard of it, immediately go to your store, online, wherever. Go get it, read it, and
spend the $10. It's worth it. I read this. Book.
Honestly, I think it's free. I think you can get a PDF online. I'm not sure.
Probably can.
But dude, that book has changed my life. I mean, I read it once. I need to read it again, honestly. But yeah.
And the other book is a tiny little book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. I kind of read these two simultaneously. But why am I reading these books? And people ask, like, that's a pretty old book. And it's really about mindfulness. It's are you aware of your thoughts? Yeah. I just wrote this post yesterday, and this is why I read this book. Is I'll read something in here and I'll chew on it. I'll write about it. I'll think about it. I'll pray on it. And what I learned is your thoughts matter, because what you think is what you become, and what you become is what you do. And it all starts from that center point of, what am I thinking about? Am I thinking negative thoughts? Well, I'm going to get negative results. Am I allowing all this stuff into my life? It's going to result in a messy product. But if I'm intentional about my thought life, I'm going to get a much better result. I learned that stuff from these books. And I mean, Napoleon Hill, for the people on the who may not be familiar with him, he went out and he was written in the 1920s, and he went out and he interviewed 500 of the most successful business leaders at that time. And he wanted to find out what made them so successful. And out of this research, he was able to discover 9 things that they did really, really well. And that's the whole point of, Think and Grow Rich, is that it's not about getting rich financially. It's about becoming rich, through your mind. So yeah, great 2 books.
Yeah. Financially, spiritually, healthy.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, it's a fantastic book. And you bring up an important point about reading books multiple times, because I have found, and I'm sure you would agree, that every time you read one, you're at a different, it's like climbing a tree, right? When you first start reading, you're at the base of the tree and you don't see very much, right? But once you grow a little bit, now you're at the first branch and you read it again and you make new connections. And then you read it again a couple years later, you're higher on the tree, where you can see like much more of the paths, and that's why it's so important to revisit. I mean, just because you read a book once, you need to read it again, because you have new growth and new perspectives.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big fan of rereading books, or going through masterminds and reading it with a group of people. And just because you learn so much more based off other people, or you reread that book again, it's like, okay, I'm going to take better notes here. I'm really going to think on these things, or I'm going to go out and talk about this thing. So yeah, it's definitely wise to find those books that really kind of like challenge you, because I'll tell you, I'll read 2 pages in Think and Grow Rich, and I'll have to put it down, because it's deep.
Yeah, no, it is.
It really makes you think. So it's good. I love books like that.
Yeah, no, I do too. Okay, so I like to ask this of everybody, because, it's important. What's the best piece of advice that you have ever received? And that could be business, personal. I mean, what's the catalyst?
I was 22 years old and I was on active duty at the time, and I was at this event and I was at this event with a bunch of senior leaders of the Coast Guard. I was an E5, and so I was probably the most junior person in the room.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was the chief of staff of the Coast Guard. He went on to become the admiral, the commandant of the Coast Guard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was probably one of the most humble people that I knew. And I was at this event, and I was with my 04 at the time, and I'll never forget it, but I was listening to him speak, and he was a very dynamic speaker, very well-spoken. And I just remember he just like inspired me. I was like, I want to know that guy. I want to know who's the guy behind the rank, behind the stars. And so I went up to him and I told my commander, I was like, hey, I'm going to go introduce myself to him. He's like, no, John, no, don't do that. Bad idea. I was like, no, I'm going to. And so I went up to him and I was like, hi, I'm John Wayne Mullins. Great presentation. I really respect what you said. It just really moved me. And, I just want to introduce myself because I want to know who you are. And he was like, he looked at me and then he looked up and I was surrounded by like, I don't know, 6 or 7 different 06s. And he made this comment. He's like, how is it that the most junior person in the room here comes up to me and introduces himself to me? And none of you can do that.
Wow.
And then he said, he told me something I'll never forget, but he said, you know what the difference is between you and me? He was like, nothing. He was like, I have stars on my collar and you have chevrons, but that doesn't matter.
Wow.
My rank and what is on my collar does not define me. The man in the mirror that I look at every night defines me. And the way you show up defines you.
That's powerful.
And he said, you and I both put our pants on the same way every night. He's like, but don't ever make the mistake that your rank or your position or your title defines who you are. And I was just like, Vice Admiral Thad Allen told me that at 22 years old.
Man, that's powerful.
Right. Gosh. Yeah, and we have a friendship to this day.
Wow, that's really neat.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
We would for a few years when I was traveling a lot, we would often see each other in the airport, and he'd come right up to me. He's like, "Hey, John, how you doing?" I was like, it's pretty cool that an E6 and the commandant of the Coast Guard at the time are on a first name basis.
Yeah. Well, for a good thing too, right?
Right.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have any advice for the aspiring coach or consultant, or anyone for that matter, when it comes to living with intent?
Yeah, I would really, recommend you early in my career, even before I started my business, I hired a coach. And someone told me once that the best coaches have coaches. Right. And I don't say that because, you should be paying or you should be growing, but when you pull out your wallet and you invest in yourself, you get a different result versus taking advantage of all these free courses or these books or whatnot. Anyone can do that. But when you actually sit down and go through the process yourself,
right,
it really helps you become a much better listener, a much better business owner. And so, if you're a new coach or consultant and you don't have a mentor, you're probably struggling. And my advice would be find a mentor or find a coach.
That's so true. It's one of those things, like, people that pay attention. And a lot of people, when you get around some people, are like, well, you're just trying to get more money or whatever. And it's like, no, it's not. I'm helping you help yourself, because, it's all about, I don't know, there's something weird. Like, when you pay for something, it speaks to the subconscious that, hey, no, this is serious. You got to do it. Right. At least that's what I find. And,
right.
Yep. So John, and I appreciate you being here today. How can someone connect with you and follow up?
The best way to keep in touch with me is either on LinkedIn under John Wayne Mullins, or you can email me at john@johnwaynemullins.com. I'm on Instagram or Facebook, but I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Instagram, I'm getting better. Facebook, no, not so much. But Yeah.
See,
But
I'm,
yeah,
I'm the complete opposite. I'm good on Facebook, but LinkedIn, I need to get a coach for that, I guess.
yeah, it's helpful. But yeah, I'm happy to connect with anybody who may have questions or,
Okay.
I give out a free 30-minute either coaching or consulting consultation to anyone who's either interested for themselves or for their business. So
Okay.
I'd be happy to extend that offer to your crowd.
All right. Well, perfect. And John, again, oh, and by the way, for those that are watching and listening, I will include the links to his contacts in the show notes. And but John, John Wayne Mullins, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend time with us. And I look forward to seeing your journey, and I look forward to seeing your books that you're going to write, and all the great things that you're going to do, man.
I appreciate that, Josh. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Take care, bud.
All right.